This over here is the start of the Hoonigan playlist. And this is, of course, Scotto from Hoonigan. I'll let him introduce himself, actually. Right, I've turned off voices. One sec. Let Scotto from Hoonigan introduce himself.
Brian Scotto here from the Hoonigans, and this is the
that
Grid Masters
is
playlist.
the person who currently, I believe, runs Hoonigan. He is, in fact, the person who started Hoonigan all those years back with Ken Block. Now, Ken, of course, passed away very early into this year, I believe. And for that, we, of course, got a very in memory of KB Forever on the back of this car here. But if you've played the Hoonigan playlist, you'll know Scotto from Hoonigan. But an absolutely insane opportunity, thanks to what I do here on this channel, I've been given the opportunity to interview Scotto. I asked him about the cars of his that have been added into the game, the Porsche, Audi, and the Hoonicorn, other cars that he likes, the future of Hoonigan, and some of his favorite this verse that's as well. Now, there will be a big chunk of the interview in here, but the full interview with Scotto is on the Stick Drift podcast channel. That will be linked at the top of the description. It's a podcast out every single week about all things cars, car culture, racing games, and motorsports. It will be down there, so check out the Stick Drift podcast for the full interview. Essentially, this video is Motorfest with Scotto because this is going to be just the more Motorfest related questions that I asked him. But we talked about a lot more stuff. We talked about UK car culture very briefly. We talked about the future of Hoonigan. We talked about other things like the Gymkhanas and the this versus that's and whatnot more in depth than this video. So if you want to see me and Scotto talk more than just the Crew Motorfest, because I didn't want to bore him with the game that, yes, he does do a big collab with, but, you know, I imagine he's more of a Hoonigan man because he's the Hoonigan man than he is a crew man. So as much as the full interview is everything, this is Motorfest with Scotto. You mentioned your own cars. Being someone who does so much on Motorfest, I know of the Audi and the Porsche and I mean, what else are you cooking? What other kind of work are you doing on those and more?
Well, so I currently own 24 or 25 cars, but like most of them are you know, like project cars that are in like very much a project state. These two are actually the cars I've owned the longest. So the Audi I bought in 2004 when I got like my first like real career job. Yeah, like it was like my first real career job. I started working for a magazine, which is Rides magazine, and I bought that like as a present to myself. I drove it for 1 year, started taking it apart, and then it was apart for 17 years and just sat. And then I started working on it again. So like now it's at this point where like it's almost like ready to like hit the track. So it is a long-term patience project. I mean, it's been 20 years now of working on that. And then the 911 was like that childhood dream car. It was like the car I always wanted. Yeah. And right when I joined, right when like Ken and I started Hoonigan, I bought that. So like that car was very much the car that we launched Hoonigan, the brand on. You know, that car was very much a part of like early Hoonigan, will always be really important to the brand. And I would say that like if I was like my top favorite cars, I mean, I haven't got to actually drive the Audi at Anger since it now has, you know, 850 horse and everything else. But those would probably be like in my top 3, with the 911 being always number 1. So it's like it's definitely the 2 cars that are most important to me. So it was fun because yesterday I got to actually like sit and play with the coupe in game, and everybody was snapping on me and making fun of me, like, "Oh, you finally get to drive your car," and I'm like, "Yeah, all right." So.
That sounds like all those matchups are wild, but I get the craziness of just 2 cars you wouldn't expect, and it's like in a drag race you've got this drag car which would be the titan of drag racing out of its depth, and you've got a car that's been brought up to drag racing, and that's a cool thing to go head to head. In fact, it mirrors a lot in the Crew, where the Crew has these drag cars as well as all these other cars, and the Hoonigan in game. I tried it recently. It's insane. It matches the drag cars in game as well, which is crazy. And I did a whole look at that, taking them to, again, not a drag strip, but like an airport strip, and beating drag cars in the Hoonigan.
And it's crazy because we never intended for that thing to be a drag car. It was never its purpose. It was built to do Gymkhana. That was its whole thing. And it just happened to be this like weapon of a straight line car. We had no idea. But even in the like Scotto versus Scotto, this versus that, that you play in the game, it's kind of interesting because the coupe definitely has way more power than the 911. So like the Audi should beat out the 911, but the 911 is, has a bit better handling, but also has like a higher top speed. So the way that, because it's not just a traditional drag race in Scotto versus Scotto, it has more of like a, more of like a certain or like a hill climb style or kind of like tarmac rally stage kind of vibe to it. I've actually, because I played that a couple times the other day, and I was actually surprised that the 911 like holds its own there. Where you think it's going to be just the coupe would be the one, because just if you just look at the raw numbers, and that for me is quintessential TVT, right? Is that the raw numbers don't mean anything, right? Because there's always like either one, something you're not expecting, a drivetrain that makes the car faster, its ability to get traction, its ability to run on a no prep surface, and then there's the other thing we always call, which is driver mod, which is like you just might be a better driver, right? So
you mentioned earlier how I believe it was the 911 was sort of it might have been the 911 or the coupe was the start of Hoonigan, really.
It's one of the reasons why I haven't changed the car much since I bought it, or since we did the RWB. We did change the wheels out, and in the game, when I saw the original mock-ups, it felt so not like the original iconic car that we actually had the wheels painted red in the game, and they're still gold, and so they're still golden, like polished in real life. And I'm about to go get them painted red. So this is one of those weird ones where life imitates art instead of the other way around. Because I just like, when I saw them, I was like, I don't want them to be like that forever in the game, because like I really want them to be red. So last night while we were playing, I was like, damn it, look, those wheels look really good in red. I can't wait to paint them red again. So
So that is kind of cool. That you made the car in the game, and then the game had them gold, and then you decided that maybe the game's version should be red, and then you made them red. But
when I saw them in the when I saw them in the mock-up, because we had to change the wheels out because we changed the suspension, I just was like, it doesn't feel right. I was like, make them red in the game, because I don't think I'll keep them gold for a long time. And now it's like the game's been out for just a few weeks or whatever, and I'm already in the process of sending my wheels off to match the game now. So I'm happy I made that executive decision. So.
And now I guess Motorfest has a slight imprint on that that cars changes. Which exactly. Of course, the Motorfest also has other things sort of imitated in the game, like Gymkhana, and you've obviously helmed a lot of the process of many Gymkhana episodes. One of the questions I have is that what would be one of the more hardest scenes you've ever had to make in a Gymkhana episode. Before I continue to the final clip of the questions that I asked Scotto, do remember that a big chunk of this, in fact the rest of this whole interview uncut, is on the Stick Drift podcast. So do head over to that. It's at the top of the description. Check out that link and check out the Stick Drift podcast, out every single week. It's also available on Spotify if that's your podcast listening platform of choice. Quickly, right before the final, the best question, I wanted to just I'm going to do my own this versus that in the game, so just list off some cars that you might think would be good together, and I'll pick the two that are actually in the game. So cars you wanted to put together.
Best this versus that in the game. Actually, I kind of want to see Ron's Evo versus my Coupe Quattro. Because they're actually like pretty well matched. They're both all-wheel drive. They have similar power. The Evo might be a little bit lighter, and like that's my dude. So like that's gonna happen in real life at some point. So let's see what the game sets, and then from there we'll test it in real life and see who wins.
There you go. Okay, I will absolutely be doing that. And I suppose just the future of Hoonigan. What do we see from Hoonigan now, I suppose?